So we have a large, valuable collection buried, all good condition, all basically mint, most of them being late 4th century into the very early 5th. But when they were buried, we don't exactly know, because the problem is that after 408 AD, you stop getting any more coins, so it makes dating any coin hoard that includes coins up to that period very hard, because they may have been buried 50 years later, but nobody can include any other Roman coins because there are no later Roman coins circulated in Britain to bury with the hoard. So you will only ever find coins that date at the latest to 408 AD. Now, I've just gone back to the Froome one. This was 52,500 coins, which is quite a lot. It is an earlier time period, so the coins are not quite comparable. It's earlier Roman, and they are bronze. That was a lot. In fact, they did discover that they knew with this one the pot had been filled once the pot had been buried in the ground, because once they lifted it out, it was too heavy to actually be able to carry it with all the bronze coins inside. So this is the one where they'd laid it. So 52,500 odd coins look great, but that amount of bronze coins at the exchange rate is less than 7 of what we've got. And so if you were burying the equivalent in bronze, you would need 22 Froome hoards to turn up. Now, there are many reasons why you wouldn't do that. For one thing, getting hold of the coins and then trying to convincingly bury them without leaving a very big mound amongst them. So a couple of little facts to put in. Hoards are unusual anyway. Gold hoards are exceptionally so. Solidi only turn up in the 4th century of the Roman period. So there are limited amounts to turn up. So we have 45 hoards that are 4th century that include gold coins, and those 45 hoards between them contain a total of 275 in Solidi. There is one exception which I have kept out from that. So we've got 159, and there's 275 known from these 45 sites between them. The one exception is Hoxton, which, if you've been to the British Museum, you will see is an enormous one. Hoxton has 584 gold coins, but it also has, it's got an enormous amount of silver, which is equivalent in value almost to the 584 gold coins. Hoxton is so big, statistically it's often ignored because it just throws all the results out, because it just increases the values of everything else. The second largest gold Roman hoard in Britain that we have detailed evidence for is Corbridge, which has 160, and we knew about this when we were digging the site, and we were pulling out the last coins, 156 of them, 157, we're going to beat the Corbridge hoard, 158, 150, no more coins. We looked for ages to try and find 2 more so that we could have the second most ever. But Corbridge isn't directly comparable, because that is the a 2nd century hoard of gold aurei. So they are gold coins from the Roman period, but a different type. And in fact, the next largest is Springhead, which has 48 in. Most coin hoards have very few, and if you include, like I say, Hoxton, the average is 19, without it's 6 1/4, and the most typical amount of gold coins to find in a hoard is 2 gold coins, which gives you an idea of the real value of these things, that it's worth burying 2 gold coins because you've got significant monetary value in these things. 2 comparable hoards of later date. I can't remember what one of them is. There is one very, very strange one, which is the middle of the 5th century, and it's almost like somebody has been collecting Roman emperors, and they have coins going back to Constantine at the sort of start of the 4th century, and they've got representations of most of the emperors, and it includes quite a lot of the later 5th century ones, but that is the exception that sort of proves the rule, because that hoard only contains 1 or 2 gold coins of the later emperors, and that's practically the only coins of those emperors that turn up in this country. So they're just not really reaching them. The big problem you have, as I say, is after 408, you lose your dating evidence. And Hoxne is interesting in this respect, because Hoxne is a really, really curious hoard. It's got, there's the gold, it's then got all this silver. And I say if you combine the value of the silver, that's about as much as the gold. But then you've also got assorted bits of jewellery. And Hoxne has spoons, it has some jewellery, it has it's got all sorts of odd bits and pieces. It's got bracelets, and it's been buried, well, it was buried in some sort of box, as you can see the perspex is meant to reconstruct it. But what we appear to be looking at is a hoard of valuable gold and silver, and that gold and silver may in some cases come in little round discs, and in some cases is coming in spoons and bracelets or jewellery. So there's quite a lot of necklaces and things in there, and in particular there are the pepper pots, and these are little pepper containers that you can, pepper being an expensive luxury at the time. So these objects appear to have been buried because they're valuable because of what they're made of, and it's thought that Hoxne is buried sometime around 450, a later date, you know, after the 408 cut-off point, and you are simply seeing with the loss of the Roman army, you have lost coins coming into Britain, so there is now a finite supply of coins, and those coins are generally getting lost or being melted down into other things. The gold coins from Hoxne are quite good, but a lot of the silver ones have been clipped. And it is thought that basically you get two different stages of clipping. Clipping's rare in the Roman period, but in the 5th century you do find that they first of all take off the very outside rim, and then they take off the letters, and they keep the profile of the emperor, but they remove the bit with the name on. And that is thought to be an attempt to make the silver go further by being able to melt some down and make new coins. And Hoxne includes some coins that are obviously later reissues of the types represented in the hoard. So we do appear to be getting this process of eking out a supply, trying to keep the coins going for a bit longer. So it does look like we have a monetary economy continuing to some extent, but it is very hard to sort of work out how far it's being used. That's Hoxne, some of the gold and silver, and that's us again. So ours doesn't look quite as impressive when you put it next to Hoxne. One real final thing to say is that how the gold is being used, how these coins are being used. Well, we've said they're very high status. When we have school parties in, and I talk to them about coins, I basically say that the bronze coins, they're like your small change. They are the coins you go to the shops with, that you actually spend. Your silver coins, they're a bit like £50 notes. You know, there's probably one or two people in the room who've got some £50 notes on them, but not everybody in the room would use them. But they do circulate, they do get out into the economy, they do get used. The gold coin is a bit like having a £500 note. And that's not to say that's what it's worth, but imagine trying to spend a £500 note. It's not terribly convenient. If you want to go to the shops and buy a paper and a pint of milk, they're not going to get £499 change in coins, off the guy running the stall. If you do take that sort of money out and it blows away, you've lost a stupid amount of money for no reason. So gold is too high value to actually circulate in a daily process within the empire, but it plays an important role because gold is the guarantee of the Roman monetary system. When you've got bronze, silver and gold coins, you do need the gold at the top. Modern coinage is token. Roman coinage is meant to be worth what it weighs. So you do see, if you look at 4th century coins, you'll see that shrinking in size over the time, that value coin is buying you less and less metal. But bronze coins are never worth exactly what they weigh because there's always a production cost for one thing, and there's always fluctuations in the price of metal. So bronze coins, especially by the 4th century, but in early periods as well, they're pretty small and scrappy, and they're not really worth that much. And if you were just using the bronze coins, nobody would bother because you have to have trust in the coinage. But if you save enough of the bronze coins, you can exchange it for one of the silver coins. And the silver coins tend to be better quality, but you do sometimes find that they get alloyed with other metals, so they're not very pure, so you're not getting that much silver in them. And they do change the weight of Roman silver coins over time. But if you save enough of the silver coins up, you can get a gold coin. And the gold coins pretty much always the same purity. They keep throughout the Roman Empire to whatever standard they've produced. The gold always stays the same. So you might see silver fluctuating, but the gold changes very little, and the weight of the gold coins tends to remain the same as well, because as long as people know, I collect these bronzes, I change them in for a silver, I collect these silver, I change them in a gold, and the gold is good, it doesn't matter the quality of the bronze and the silver coins, people could still go out and trust in them and use them. So the gold plays an important role, but it probably isn't circulating a great deal. And in fact, when we look at 4th century gold, if you look at the accounts, it is actually meant to be a very limited circulation indeed, and it's supposed to be limited simply to being used for taxation purposes. So if you're wealthy, you should be paying your taxes in gold, but not much else. And this is quite a hard thing to sort of manage, but we do occasionally find these little ingots of Roman gold. And what appears to be happening in theory is that if you're a wealthy landowner, you would, come tax day, you would come down to Verulamium, go to the forum, and you would find the moneylender, and you would go over to him and say, I've got to pay my taxes, and I need 2 gold pieces to pay my taxes this year. And so the moneylender would go, right, 2 gold pieces, right, that I need the equivalent of 2.5 gold pieces in silver. So you would pay him 2.5 times the amount in silver, because that's his cut, that's his profit for exchanging the gold with you. And I rather suspect that then that the moneylender would simply bend down behind the counter, come back up with his taxman's hat on and say, sir, you've come to pay your taxes, have you? 2 gold pieces I think you owe me. And he'd essentially take the money back from him again. And this is supposedly how the system works. And the reason we get these gold bars, these little ingots, not very big, there's another slide of some of them there, generally a few centimetres long, is that, but when these coins, once they would have been collected in for taxation purposes, they were melted down. They were melted down, stamped with presumably the moneylender or the tax official who collected them, and then they were sent back to the mint sites for remelting. And that stamp was meant to guarantee the quality. So there was obviously some concern that if you let the coins go back, they might be removed, or some of the metal might be shaved off, or maybe they'd be reissued with impurities, somebody would stamp other ones. But in theory, these coins are issued, they go out, they're paid in taxes, and they're melted down. And this probably explains why, when you look at the coin hoards, we've only got 1 coin of Gratian, because Gratian's coins are 30, 40 years old, at least by the time this hoard is buried, which means you've got 30, 40 chances of those coins being paid in as tax and melted down. So the earlier the emperor, the less of those coins will survive, which explains why they're mostly Arcadius and Honorius at the end of that run. So